I want to give you two numbers, and then I want to watch you do the math in your head. Number 1, 1,250 horsepower. Number 2, $207,000. Now, here's why that combination should not exist. A Lamborghini Reveletto makes 1,016 horsepower. That's 234 less. It costs $608,000. A Ferrari SF90XX Stradale makes 1,016 horsepower, also 234 less. That one costs $844,000. So Chevrolet just built a car that makes more power than both of them for less than a third of the price of the Ferrari. And it laps the Nürburgring in 6 minutes and 49 seconds. And it gets to 60 miles an hour in 1.89 seconds, which is quicker than your brain can finish the thought, oh no. And I keep coming back to the same question. How is that even possible? Because it's not like Ferrari and Lamborghini are lazy. These are not sloppy companies, so either they've been overcharging us for 40 years, or Chevrolet knows something nobody else does. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. Sit down because this one made me stupidly happy. Let me take you back, because you can't understand why this matters without understanding what everybody used to say about us. For decades, the line on American performance cars was the same, and honestly, for a long time it wasn't even wrong. The joke went like this: Americans built engines, Europeans built cars. We'd bolt in something enormous, make a magnificent noise, destroy a quarter mile, and then arrive at the first corner and just sort of negotiate it. Plastic interior, leaf springs, a chassis that felt like it was assembled by people who had heard of corners but never personally met one. And the Corvette wore that reputation like a jacket it couldn't take off. It was fast. Everyone admitted it was fast. It was also, and I say this with love, the car you bought when you couldn't afford the real thing. That was the ceiling. Great value, not a real supercar. Sit down. And I think what people miss is how long Chevrolet had to sit inside that insult, because they knew. The engineers absolutely knew what the problem was and had known for something like 50 years. The engine was in the wrong place. Everything great sat its engine in the middle. Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, all of them. Weight in the center. Car turns like it read your mind. Corvette had the engine hanging out over the front wheels like every pickup truck in America. They wanted to move it since the 1960s. There were concepts. There were prototypes. There were engineers who spent entire careers pitching it and retiring before it happened. And every single time it got killed. Too expensive. Too risky. Corvette buyers won't like it. Don't fix what sells. Which brings me to a man named Taj Yechter. 47 years at General Motors, 31 of them on Corvette. Think about that for a second, because I don't think we say this out loud enough. That's not a job, that's a life. That's a guy who spent 3 decades on one car, and the thing he wanted most for most of those decades was the one thing he kept being told no about. And then they went and did the fucking thing anyway. The C8. Engine behind the seats. Finally, after 50 years of no, the answer was yes, and the first time journalists drove it, the reviews basically read like people apologizing. And when he retired, they put a graphic on the rear glass of the ZR1 honoring him, which I love, because that's not a plaque in a lobby somewhere, that's on the car, doing 200 miles an hour. That's the right way to thank an engineer. Okay, so let's talk about what they actually built, because the engineering here is ridiculous in the best way. Start with the engine. It's called the LT7. 5.5 litres, twin turbocharged, and it makes 1,064 horsepower and 828 pound-per-feet of torque all by itself. That is the most powerful V8 any American manufacturer has ever built. Not this year, ever. And here's the detail I find beautiful. It's not some exotic clean sheet moonshot. They started with the architecture from the Z06's engine, the LT6, and then optimized basically every system on it to handle boost. That's not a shortcut, that's discipline. That's knowing your own work well enough to know exactly how far you can push it. It also has a flat plane crankshaft, which is the thing that makes it scream instead of rumble. It's the layout Ferrari uses, so the Corvette doesn't sound like a muscle car anymore. It sounds like something with an Italian accent that's very upset with you. Then, for the X, they added an electric motor to the front axle, 186 horsepower up there, which does two things at once. First, it gets you to 1,250 combined. Second, and this is the part people skip past, it makes the car all-wheel drive. And that's really the whole trick. Because 1,064 horsepower through 2 rear tires is not a fast car. It's a very expensive way to make smoke. Physics does not care how brave you are. You cannot put that much power down through the back wheels off the line. But drive all 4 corners? Now you can. Now 1.89 seconds to 60 is real instead of a number in a brochure. I looked at that figure and thought there had to be an asterisk. There sort of is. You need the ZTK Performance Package, which costs $1,500. $1,500 on a car that is already outrunning things that cost 4 times as much. I don't even know what to do with that. And then there's the lap, 6 minutes and 49 seconds around the Nürburgring. If that number doesn't mean anything to you, let me put it this way. The Nürburgring is 12.5 miles of German forest road with 150 corners, no runoff in most places, and a nickname that translates to the Green Hell. It is where European manufacturers go to prove things. It is their home turf, their yardstick, their whole argument. And an American car built in Bowling Green, Kentucky just went there and posted 6 minutes 49 seconds. That is an absolutely shit insane number for a car with a price tag starting with a 2. So let me come back to the question I asked at the start. How? And I've thought about this a lot, and I don't think the answer is that Ferrari and Lamborghini are ripping people off. I don't. I think they're selling something real. It's just not only the car. You're buying the badge, the history, the racing, the way the neighbors look at you. That's a real product. People want it. Fine. But I think Chevrolet figured out something the others structurally can't. Ferrari makes something like 14,000 cars a year. Lamborghini's in the same neighborhood. Every part on those cars gets amortized across a tiny number of buyers, so everything costs a fortune before it even leaves the factory. Chevrolet is part of a company that builds millions of vehicles. They have the scale, the supply chain, the manufacturing muscle. So when Corvette engineers want an exotic material or a bespoke process, they're not paying boutique prices for it. They're borrowing the machinery of one of the biggest industrial operations on Earth and pointing it at a sports car. That's not a cheat, that's an advantage nobody else has, and for 50 years they mostly wasted it. This is what it looks like when they finally use it properly. But here's the part I actually care about, and it's got nothing to do with lap times. I love that this car is $207,000, and I know exactly how that sounds. $207,000 is a fortune. That's a house in most of this country. I'm not going to insult you by pretending that's affordable, because it isn't. But it used to be $850,000. It used to be a number that meant you had to be born into something, or sell a company, or get very lucky in a way that most people never get lucky. That level of performance was behind a door, and the door had a guest list. And Chevrolet just took a sledgehammer to the door. Because now there's a version of this that's within reach of a successful contractor, a person who owns 3 restaurants, somebody who spent 30 years building a business nobody's ever heard of. Real people with real jobs who never had a shot at 1,250 horsepower, and now maybe one day do. That's what I think value actually is, not cheapness, access. It's saying the best thing we know how to make shouldn't only belong to the 400 richest people on the planet. There's a guy out there right now, and he's 55, and he's had a picture of a Corvette on his wall somewhere since he was 9 years old. And he spent his whole life being told that the real cars, the serious ones, come from somewhere else, somewhere older, somewhere with better stories. He's about to find out that the fastest thing for the money on this entire planet was built about 4 hours from where he grew up. by people with the same accent as him, who spent 50 years being politely told that they couldn't. I think that's worth being happy about. I think we're allowed to just enjoy this one. So go find a ZR1X in person if you get the chance. Stand behind it, have somebody start it, and then tell me America can't build a supercar. I'll be right here when you get back.